my questions. Because you and others like you who are in this field. Shout out to Grant Stoner, who's written some great articles about this topic. You've all had you've made some impactful changes on the gaming industry, and some of that, as you say, it's been a struggle. It's been kind of tough, especially just getting people to understand what it is that we're talking about. Because as soon as someone says, that there's an option that people can tick off or on, everyone's like, oh, you're forcing the developers to change something. And it's really just a suggestion. It's not something set in stone where if you're doing this, you're breaking some type of rule or whatever the case may be. So with that being said, initially starting out, what were some of the struggles that, AbleGamers and yourself might have faced getting folks, whether it be the media, developers, to kind of care more about accessibility? And how do they differ from, what you might face today?
It's interesting in that everything sort of has a domino effect in that when we started out doing this, there was not a lot of noise around accessibility, and there were not advocates. I was one of the first out there being extremely visible, being an advocate for being disabled and playing video games. There were some other people who had done things like make petitions to make remappable controls a thing. I mean, that's something that people forget is like a decade ago, there literally was a disabled person who had to make a petition to get the industry to even care about making remappable controls. And now, if a game doesn't have a remappable controls, able-bodied people are like, oh, no, you did not put out that video game without remappable controls.
Right.
As if it's an affront to them personally. And it's like, well, okay, a decade ago we were begging you to do that because we couldn't play otherwise. But okay, now it's a thing. All right, got it. So, it's interesting to me how the industry kind of flips and society kind of just eventually just goes with things and then adopts them as if it's always been. And that's kind of what accessibility is coming to now is, back then it was fighting. For example, on the floor of one of the very first PAX East, I was out there with my founder, Mark Varley. We were going around to different booths and trying to make friends. We didn't know developers back then at all. And so we had to make introductions and had to make a game plan, how to introduce ourselves. We came up with this cool little flyer that talks about, hey, there's millions of people who need adaptations in games, and don't you want their money? And like really trying to sell to the bottom line. And we came up to the 2K booth up for Rockstar, and we handed the flyer to the person out in front, and they were like, oh, you need to talk to our head developer person because they're the ones that can make these kind of changes. We're like, okay, great. So a dude comes out, stands next to me, but talks over me, like literally like talking over top of my head to the able-bodied person, Mark, who's actually disabled, who is invisibly disabled. So he just looks right over me, talks to Mark, says, hey, I'm so-and-so, what can I help you with? Mark, hands him the flyer and says, hey, Steve and I here are looking for, people to talk to about accessibility. It's really great. Gives the whole, minute and a half spiel. And dude just, completely ignores I'm there and talks to Mark and then says, okay, thanks, I'll get back to you. And then walks away, but doesn't realize we can still see him as he's walking away. Crumples up the flyer, throws it in the trash can, and walks behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. And we were like, wow, that's amazing. So, you were talking about the power of Twitter. I was one of the early adopters of that power back in the Ashton Kutcher trying to get it going days. And so I complained about it on Twitter. And Twitter does what Twitter does best and amplified it to the point that Mark got a call at midnight from the head of 2K going, hey, I heard this happened. I'm so sorry. I can't believe that one of our people treated you like that. How do I make this right? And about a month later, we were one of the few people who were invited out to Rockstar Games headquarters in New York to go and talk about video gaming and accessibility. We were actually there when Max Payne was turning gold, so it was a busy day for them, but they still entertained us. And we tried to help them as best we could. But that is kind of the struggles that we faced back then. So now, a lot of advocacy is online. You see various journalists doing their thing and talking about things online. You see people out there who are being representation, like Steve Saylor out there going out and working with Twitch and being on the front page and getting eyeballs on there. And a lot of those things are now how we fight. We fight as a team. Now, we're all people, so we all don't get along, and truthfully, some of us don't like each other because we're humans. we're just people. I cannot stand when someone's like, "Oh, you must have known Michael. He's in a wheelchair, And I'm like, "Yeah, we meet at the water cooler every Thursday. Yeah, I love Michael. He's fantastic." But at the end of the day, we're all aligned in the same common goal, which is to make the industry more accessible. So at the end of the day, you put petty squabbles aside of it. I didn't like when you did this, or I didn't, it made my job hard when you did this, and you put it aside and you go, okay, we're working together for the common cause. And underneath that umbrella of making the industry more inclusive for everyone, then we hope to pull in people from every minority and every background. I mean, disability is weird like that, Disability is the only minority that includes every single other minority. There is not a minority on this planet that does not have disabled people in it. So it's a common ground that we all can work from and then fight for inclusiveness together.